number one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 390 of Sports Card Nation podcast as we approach the big 400 of episodes. Let's start off by thanking our great sponsors, and we have a new one to introduce, which really shouldn't be new to people who've been around in the hobby a while. But from the top, Iron Sports Cards, Rob doing great things there with bulk subbing, Sports Collectors Digest, who I'm very grateful to be able to write for and highlight some great hobby people and share some of my hobby opinions. Hobby Hotline, our Saturday morning conglomerate live show with many different hosts. Upper Deck, and they allow us to review some products, give away some hits, and our newest sponsor, which I've used and known them for a while, so they're not new in those terms. But as part of the sponsorship, we're going to be giving away some memberships to them. So Card Ladder, your great tool to see what cards are going for, what sort of the market value is, population, a lot of insight. Too much to list. Their commercial is running on this episode, midpoint here, so check that out as well. So thanks to those folks. Shameless plug, I have a new podcast, and it's not a hobby one, it's a sports one. You will not find it on the Sports Card Nation network, so if you're interested, you have to go and search for it. It's called From Syracuse to the Show, and it pertains to the Syracuse Mets, the AAA ball club of the New York Mets and the New York Mets. So I'll be covering all things Syracuse and New York Mets. I am a press credentialed member of the Syracuse Mets, so I get to go to as many games as I can get to. And it's going to be a weekly podcast during the season pertaining to Syracuse and the New York Mets. Syracuse actually is the only team in the Mets system with a winning record, including the Mets themselves. So if you're a Mets fan or you like baseball, From Syracuse to the Show, go find that podcast. Maybe you're not a Mets fan, but you have friends who are, I appreciate all the word of mouth and spread that way. So tell your Mets friends, From Syracuse to the Show. All right, that being said, we got our second half of our conversation with Nick Barton, a guy doing great things. And on this episode, we're really going to talk about a show he's putting on that's never been done before in the hobby. That's all I'm going to say. I'll tease you with that. So with that tease, let's get this show started. CSs are like so important, and I had one myself for 7 years in the 90s, right? And most LCS owners care about customer service. They care about what their customers collect or what they're looking for, right? And once they get to know like you, and they know, hey, he collects, Bryce Harper cards. They'll put stuff away. They'll when you come in, they'll remember, hey, I got these in, or hey, I got this. I picked it up in a bigger deal. I'm giving it to you. Merry Christmas early or whatever. I thought of you when I got this in a collection that I acquired, and I put it aside for you, right? And that sort of stuff goes a long way, right? To those experiences being positive, where someone gets to enjoy the hobby, stay in it. When people get in the hobby, someone say, oh man, like the old guard, I've been called like the old guard, like you don't like new people. I love new people. I want people not to come in the hobby and stay in the hobby. and not maybe leave after a year or a couple years. And so anything we can do, I always say we're all whether we want to be or not. If we're in the hobby, we're sort of ambassadors and advocates for the hobby. And so anything you can do, and you don't have to be a show dealer or an LCS owner. You can do things to promote the hobby and do good things to have other people have good hobby experiences and stick around. And I think we're seeing. I think that stuff's contagious, Nick, and I think we're starting to see more. But there's always room for even more, right? There can't when it comes to that positive stuff, we can't have too much, right? So the more we see it, I just think it makes the hobby a better place.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Just the relationships, like you mentioned, what that triggered in me is I have a really close friend. We met in the army. I'm out now. He's still in. He's finishing up his 20 years and then retiring. So he's out in Colorado. But he's from Seattle, so he's a big Griffey fan. Obviously, he grew up there.
Yeah,
He grew up in Oregon, but he's a Seattle fan. So whenever I come across like cool Seahawks cards or Mariners cards, I pick them up for him. He does the same thing for me with Phillies and Eagles and stuff. And we every once in a
yeah,
while, there's a package on the doorstep with cards, and it's a fun bond to not only look for cards for you, but for other people that you're close with and that you can share those memories with. Yeah, it's just awesome. I mean, that's part of the in person, getting to know people thing and sharing the experiences of the hobby with them. It's all tied together. And as you mentioned too, like everybody really is an ambassador for the hobby at this point. And it's up to us. Like if we want this hobby to continue to grow and sustain itself, and for future generations to be able to continue to enjoy it, we have to shepherd it properly.
yeah.
It starts with
I
everybody.
Yep, yep. And you never know. I always, when I started doing show, I did my first show as a dealer at 15 years old. I was
Wow.
probably on the young side of things, and I always say this to like people I set up near or I know that are fellow dealers. And this doesn't just apply to dealers, Nick. This applies to anyone. You never know who's watching, and so you should always be cognizant of that. And so, whether I'm home by myself working with cards or I'm at behind my table at a show where there's 900 people in the room, I try to, have integrity no matter what, whether it's no one's watching or everyone's watching. And there's something to be said about that. And so, and I take pride in that. So, whether it's like I mentioned, maybe I bought a collection or I bought a lot of, a pocket of cards off someone, and I know like certain, this friend of mine, like you just said with your military buddy, right? Even when I purchase things, I'm not only just thinking about me, but hey, like so and so would really enjoy that. So if I get this, it's already earmarked for that person, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that pays more dividends than even the probably what the card's worth. The just the thought and the deed itself is worth more than the cardboard in most cases. But it really just sets a nice tone, and it's just positive, right? You just I feel good, I'm not doing it because it looks good. It makes me feel good that I can do it, and I appreciate like the look, whether it's a kid or even not a kid, right? Like you're giving this to me, yeah. That's I thought about you when I got it, so I put it aside, and man, I can't believe you thought about me. Sometimes it's even more than the actual item itself. It's the fact that that person realizes you thought about them when they're not right in front of you. And so that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't take a lot to be kind to one another. And
Nope.
yeah, I mean, and it honestly, like you said, it's contagious, right? Like people have given me cards to give out to other kids because they see me giving cards to other kids,
Yep.
and it's just that spreads, that positivity spreads, and unfortunately, I think one of the things we do see sometimes is, I mean, the world has negative, but I think if you stay positive and keep that outlook and try to just, as my son would say, he learned this from his grandmother, be cool, be kind. So he likes to tell
Yep.
me. um,
Yeah.
just be kind to other people, and that just the feeling you get from doing that is worth more than anything monetarily, in my opinion.
Yep. And it is contagious. I've had fellow dealers say, "Hey, hey Newman, I hope you don't mind. I saw what you did. I'm kind of taking a page out of your book. I'm giving out some packs, or I'm giving out some. They put like card packs together, like team bags of
Yep.
with some stars and some. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. You did. I didn't invent that. Like I got that from someone else did that before me. So just keep that trend going. You don't have to like ask permission to do that. That just and I love to see it, right? And the more we see that, just the hobby becomes a better place for it. Now I know how you got your name Mean Daddy, but for those listening of Mean Daddy Sport, like where did the moniker? How did you come up with the moniker?
Yeah, so it is a fun name. I get asked this fairly often, especially with the logo. So when my son was born, pretty much anytime he cried for any reason, if I was anywhere near him crying, his mother, my wife, would come in and say, "What did Mean Daddy do to you? What did Mean Daddy do to you?" And the name just kind of stuck. It was, it was funny. So that kind of just stuck as the moniker. And I'm paying her back now with our daughter, because anytime my daughter cries and she's anywhere near it, she's Mean Mommy. So be on the lookout for that, for Mean Mommy. That's
That
that's how the moniker came up, and the logo. I don't know. My son kind of inspired it. So
Very cool. And unlike the name, right? You're not a mean daddy, and you're a great advocate and ambassador, as we kind of discussed earlier, of the hobby, right? And so I read this, I believe it was Sports Collectors Daily, when I read the piece on you, or Digest, who I write for. But you're thinking outside the box, and you're trying to do some different stuff with card shows, right? Not everybody enjoys card shows the same way. And as some that listen to this podcast know, uh, I'm a teaching assistant in the special education department. So I work with young men and young women, adults. I'm at the high school level, who, have different disabilities, and maybe, they don't like too much crowds make them nervous or uncomfortable, loud noises, or too much noise, all different sort of things. And that's just some of it. We could do 2 hours of all the different types of disabilities, so we don't have that much time. But you're doing shows. You're going to do a show that's sort of, with people and geared towards kids that have some of these things that we sort of take for granted when we don't have these things, right? We don't realize that others are dealing with this, and what might be, easy to do for us may not be easy to do for them. You're thinking about those folks, and it's near. Again, I know I said this before we even start recording. That's near and dear to my heart. So when I read this, and like I believe it's to be the first show that's geared in that direction. Talk about the show. How you came. How this was planned and launched, and kind of the birth of what you're about to do. And I love it, but it's your thing, so I'll let you kind of I know about it from reading about it, but this is your thing, so I'll shut up and let you talk about it.
all right, thank you. Yeah, so the show's called the All Star Card Show. Um, I started this with my good friend Brett. He owns the Fishtown Card Show in Philadelphia area. There's one Philadelphia, there's one Cherry Hill, New Jersey, one in
Yeah,
Delaware. So we partnered up on this, but yeah. So basically, I had a family reach out to me and said, "Hey, my kid wants to come to a card show, but I'm afraid that it could be overwhelming for him, this and that." He has anxiety, so on and so forth. And I said, all right, well, how about this? Why don't you guys come out? You guys be my guests. I'll get you guys some tickets. Come out, have some cards. We'll hang out at my table. We'll rip cards. And then hopefully he's feeling good and having fun. He'll want to walk around and do some other stuff. So that all worked out. We had him come out. hung out with him, and it was a great time, and he really enjoyed it. And then after that, we started kind of getting more inquiries about that, and more families, and one thing led to another. And I kind of thought to myself, I noticed like sometimes the kids would get overwhelmed. They'd be looking, the parents were looking for somewhere quiet to take them to kind of calm down a little bit. And I totally get that. Like the card shows can be crazy for sure. So I thought to myself, all right, is there a card show for these families and these kids? And I looked and searched and didn't see anything. I was like, all right, well, I think there should be one. So I kind of started with that. And then one thing led to another. And I started to think about, we talked about the financial aspect of how hard it is for anybody to be able to afford some of this stuff. And I said, there's got to be a way where we can put this show on and make it be one less thing that these parents and these kids have to worry about. They can just show up. There'll be cards, there'll be starter kits, boxes for the kids to keep their cards and supplies. Food's going to be free. Everything's going to be free. I just want these kids to be able to come with their families and have a fun night out. And luckily, we've had a really great reception from not only people in the hobby, but outside the hobby that have contributed to this. We are all together are going to be doing just that, is making a night like this for these kids that hopefully they won't forget, their families won't forget. And, for some of them, it'll be a good introduction to the hobby. Some of them have been in the hobby already. So, it's just, that's the whole thing. I think it's going to be a really, really fun thing all the way around for everybody, from these kids, the families, to me, to the other volunteers. It's going to be a really good time.
I love it. Kudos to you. And, think about, someone say, do we need this show? And the answer is an easy yes, right? Because think about maybe how many kids are going to attend, and not just kids, right? Just people. But I know it's geared towards kids. But think about how many people might go to the show that would have never thought about going to a show before, for the reasons kind of we discussed, whether it be crowds or the noises, or they just don't feel. They feel maybe not like they belong even, and you're designing the show to eliminate a lot of those things that may cause them to not come to a show in the first place. And this, it might be in many cases the first show for folks coming to the show, and that, hey, you can do this, right? There's avenues to you don't have to just enjoy the hobby, in your room. You can come out. There's ways to enjoy the hobby, even with some of your disabilities and things like that. That you can, we can design an event where that shouldn't be an issue anymore, or not like your typical show. And to think outside the box like that. I mean, I think it says a lot about you, Nick, and the people involved, obviously, that are helping out. Kudos to them as well. And, I think sometimes we forget about, I think sometimes we think, well, we're all, cookie cutters. We're all the same. And that's so far from the truth. I know that firsthand from what I do. I knew that before that, but even all the more so, when you're working with those youngsters day in and day out. What might be simple for me and you or somebody else is a big hurdle for them. And I think sometimes, I guess we all can be guilty of taking that for granted occasionally. And here you are, designing an event that's going to, hopefully where those folks can enjoy it like anybody.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
When you're dealing with sports cards, guessing isn't a strategy. A strategy requires relying on accurate data that you can trust. That's why the hobby uses Card Ladder. Card Ladder provides hundreds of millions of historical prices going back over 20 years, plus real-time tracking of comps from across the hobby as they happen. We track sales from every major platform while working together with marketplaces and grading companies to provide the most reliable data in the industry. Card Ladder's research team carefully vets millions of transactions. We provide dozens of category indexes and thousands of player indexes to help you get a big picture view of the market. With Card Ladder, you can look up prices for any card in any grade, track and manage your collection in real time, and study industry-wide metrics, all to enhance your collecting experience. Ready to level up your hobby? Go to cardladder.com right now. Tap Try It for free or get started today.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
Talk about some, the difficulties and how does something like that all come together? And when it happens, it's probably going to look seamless, but it's anyone that's done any kind of show or an event, it's never as easy as it sometimes looks.
Yeah, definitely. I think number one, couldn't do this without Brett. He has the experience of running shows, and that was a huge because I don't have that experience. So him being able to help with that type of stuff and, getting the venue and just all the kind of things that go in behind, there's a million things behind the scenes that go into having a show. And it's different, right? Because most shows you have vendors and, they pay a fee or whatever to come to it and have a table. And I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to make this solely about the kids and these families. And I wanted to do things unorthodox. Like we talked about having a place to go that's quiet. We're going to have a full sensory at this show. So if kids need to go to a sensory friendly place, that we have that. We're going to have an education zone with teachers that are also in the hobby, like yourself, and are going to teach these kids about the hobbies, but they have worked with kids with special needs before. So, there's a ton that goes into it. I think the biggest thing is just the outpouring of support from, too many people to name. Businesses like Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is sponsoring the event. They're one of our sponsors. It's amazing, just the outpouring of love and support that we've gotten for this from people. That's been really helpful. People within the community just kind of saying, hey, this might be a good idea, or hey, I'd like to help and do this. Do you guys think this would be cool with the event? And just kind of everything kind of just fell into place. Believe it or not, it was a lot of hard work from a lot of people, but it's really falling into place. It's really going to be a group effort and hopefully start something great,
Yeah, and there's that contagious part of the hobby, right? When you're doing something good, right? There should be, and hopefully it'll be always the case, right? There should be no shortage of people who want to get on board and be part of it and make it easier, right? The more people involved, the easier it should be. But even that being said, right, to put together the event, you got to have a lot of people sort of rowing in the same direction, if you will. And sometimes that's easier said than done. But I think it's going to be great. Again, kudos to you and everyone involved. And this is something I read too. This is something you don't want this to be a one-time thing and done. This is something you want to bring to different locales and sort of gain momentum. And so no matter where you potentially may live in the country, right, you should this event can be something you can attend. Kind of speak. I know it's early in the process and you're getting this one off the ground, but kind of the big picture or the down the turnpike view of an event like this.
Yeah, definitely. This has all happened pretty quickly, honestly. And I think we're always gonna have things to learn about it. I think we'll learn a lot from the first one. But yeah, we've had interest from all over the country, and honestly, I don't see why this couldn't be something that's international at some point. This is for others. This is for other people, and this is for people that it's harder. Like you said, it's harder for them to just go to a run-of-the-mill card show on a Saturday. So I hope that we can continue to get support for this cause. Obviously I'm from Philadelphia, so the first one's in that area. And hopefully we can continue to expand out and more people are interested in being a part of this and we can try to, touch on as many people and families as we can, and spread the hobby to them.
Yeah, I love it. I hope that's the case, Nick. And maybe, we talk about the National, which is coming up here in a couple months. And that's I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby. And obviously, if you're someone that has some of those disabilities, that's an overwhelming event and just to anybody
Yes.
in many cases, right? But maybe, obviously not this year, but maybe in a future year, maybe as soon as 2027, right? Maybe, they're starting to expand, right? They're going to the second floor. Maybe they can even dedicate, a certain level or part of that show where if someone's coming in, especially if someone's coming in special needs, even just for the day, where that they can still attend and say they attended the national and partaked in it, where before they may be like, there's no way, you know, Jimmy or Susie can do this kind of event. But maybe that wouldn't be the case if it's something they consider, putting into place and using, your blueprint, if you will, as sort of or get you involved, maybe even have you work with them to have part of the national sort of be available for people with disabilities who might not be able to go in the main ballroom, if you will, but still want to attend, the show or be in that city. I hope that's something that, obviously not this year, but maybe in future nationals, that's something we may see, and not just national. I mentioned the national because it's the granddaddy of them all, as they say. But we're seeing a lot of these regional shows, right? Your East Coast Nationals, your Burbank shows, your Dallas card shows, and others. I don't mean to leave anybody off, but maybe some of these other shows can take a page out of your book or get you involved. Like, how do we bring what you're doing here? How can we offer that, and how can we do it? That way the show can be for everyone and doesn't have to necessarily, preclude or exclude anybody. Right? I believe the hobby should be inclusive, not exclusive, and hopefully that's, maybe we'll someday we'll be talking, Nick, about your inaugural event just being sort of the precedent to have the hot, more inclusion, no matter where the locale or even size of the show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would love that. Anybody that's, interested in doing something like this, feel free to reach out. I think definitely like the national is the Super Bowl, right? And it's a special thing, the first one you go to when you first walk in for the first time.
Yep.
And I think anybody that's in the hobby should experience it. And yeah, I mean I think too, some of these bigger shows especially probably have the infrastructure and staff and team to be able to do something like what you're saying. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean the more the merrier, for lack of a lack of a better
Yep.
cliche, I guess. But yeah, I mean it'd be awesome if we could get as many people as we can to these types of things, and really whatever level, and the national to your local card show down the street. You know what I mean? So I just want people to experience the hobby the way I got to experience it as a kid, even throughout my adulthood, especially like times in the army. Opening a box of cards or a couple packs of cards with some buddies was always a good time for me, and sometimes even helped me through some tough times. So I
Yep.
think that that could also have the same effect on others, and if I can help people find that, then let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'll say this on the air. I'll say this out there. If there's anything I can do, and it's in my power, I'm willing to help. This is near and dear to my heart. I work 5 days a week with young, male and female students that have a lot of these disabilities. It's tough. It's tough. It's stuff that me or you may not think twice about. It's a huge hurdle. And so to think someone that's dealing with that stuff on such a daily basis can still go to an event and enjoy it like everyone else, right? That's so awesome. Even just talking about it, it's awesome to think that that's what something was not even on their radar is not only going to be on the radar, but something they can partake in. That's a big deal. I don't care, and that should be a big deal whether you know, I think if you like again that ambassador and advocate, you should want to see that whether you work with kids, whether you're a parent or a relative, it shouldn't matter. That should be something you endorse and applaud, and I for sure do. And and you, again, you don't have to do that, right? You can say, well, this is a big undertaking. Someone else, everyone sometimes has that, right? Someone else would do it, right? But
Yeah.
you're not a someone else would do it. You're like, let's do this, and here you are. So, again, kudos to you and everyone involved. I think it's such a great hobby story, and it's not a hobby story; it's a great human story that just happens to take place in the hobby, right? And I think it's just so it's so important. We don't really realize it, I think some people do, but it really is important. And kudos to you. We're coming down to term. We're approaching the hour mark here, so I'll give you kind of give out any of the info you want to give out: social media, website, dates, time. No rush. Take your time, Nick. I appreciate you making some time for us. So give out all that info so people can find out more.
Awesome. Well, hey, first and foremost, thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it. Appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about Me and Daddy and the All-Star Card Show. Like I said earlier, there's so many people that have contributed to this, and just too many to name. But thank you guys all for everything that you put forth towards this, and it's going to be a special thing, and hopefully it will continue to grow. More people to hear about it, stuff like that. If you want to learn more about the All-Star Card Show, we're on Instagram. It's at All-Star Card Show. And then for myself, MeanDaddy Cards is at MeanDaddy Cards on Instagram. Those are the two social media platforms we have. I'm working on a YouTube, but been a little busy, so
Yeah.
that's not fully updated yet. But yeah, that's where you can find out more about the show, about myself. Feel free to DM me or the card show. Get back to you as fast as I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome stuff, man. I'm not a lip service guy. That's from the heart, right? And I always say, and it wasn't something I could, even the smallest ripples, if we all make them, it becomes a big wave, right? And
Yes, sir.
hopefully that's what's going to happen here. And we're talking about it because it's a precedent-setting thing, but maybe we'll be having a conversation in the future where this will just be a normal thing, right? And that's, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure that's probably a goal. Like you like to see this just become, where no matter where you live, like you said, even international, this can be available to you, where maybe you could never, before where you wouldn't even think about attending, and now that person can. And that's huge. That's huge. That can make somebody's day. That can make someone's month. That can make somebody's life. Not to be dramatic, but I've seen stuff like that on the ground level. So it's important. Like I said, when I read about it, I actually talked about it on one of my pods, Nick, and I said, I'm going to reach out and see if we can get this gentleman on and shed some more light on it, because it's important. And here we are. So I know you're busy. So thank you for making some time. Whatever you need from me, whether it's whatever, even just talking about it or getting out some dates or pertinent info, don't hesitate. My door will be open all the time to something like this. Not just this event, but any future ones as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Appreciate all the kind words. And I guess if I could say one more thing to everybody, go to a
Yep.
card show. Open some packs. Rip some
Yep.
packs.
Yep. Enjoy the hobby in person, right? It can't be replicated. The hobby's fun in your room and in your house. Don't get me wrong, but in person, it's a whole nother level.
100%.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Awesome getting to know Nick Barton and what he's about and what he's doing. Check out MeanDaddy Cards. And, the name might say Mean Daddy, but probably one of the nicest guys in the hobby. And what he's doing with this show here in June coming right up here. Just amazing stuff. So check out what he's doing. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more from him in the future. And we'll love to have him back on too and kind of catch up with things going on there. So we're going to hear from our Hobbies of People announcer of the week. And if it's something you would like to do, there's directions how to do it and be a part of this show for eternity, or as long as the show runs. And we're going to wrap after the Hobbies of People announcer of the week. We'll wrap up this week's episode, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks, everybody.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
This is Ray from Philly, and remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Say goodnight, Kane.